This is Will's 7th speech. He'll be working on practicing with visual aids. The topic of his speech tonight is Let's Talk. Help me welcome to the lectern, Will Harris.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, guests. I am Will Harris. I am a deputy sheriff, Mahoney County Sheriff's Department, and I'm in my 15th year at the Sheriff's Department. And one of the duties I am charged with is to enlighten the public on how to deal with the police or law enforcement when confronted by or stopped by them. One day I went to the sheriff out of concern, and I told him that I think a lot of the problem, what's wrong in the public, is people are not aware of a lot of things on how to deal with the police, whether it's their rights or how to behave or anything else concerning dealing with law enforcement. So we put together a PowerPoint presentation. This is supposed to be a PowerPoint, but I didn't have a projector available. So I just made copies. And the title, as she said, of my speech is, or my presentation is, Let's Talk. And on the second page, we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to try to compact this entire presentation. This is probably about a 45-minute to an hour presentation, but I'm going to compact it in 7 minutes. I'm going to make an attempt. So I'm going to breeze right through this if I can. And if you have any questions, we'll open up for questions if you have any. We're going to talk a little bit about police officers, your rights when dealing with police officers, and what to do when stopped by police officers. In law enforcement, we have what we call Code of Ethics, the third page in. And at the Sheriff's Department, as a deputy, my fundamental obligation is to uphold the constitutional rights and freedoms of the people whom I am sworn to protect. In other words, I have to be on my best behavior when I'm on duty. On and off duty, actually, because they allow me to carry a gun anywhere and any time. So I am charged with behaving in such a manner as a law enforcement officer. I take an oath. I raise my right hand and I swear to do such, to uphold the laws of the state of Ohio and the United States Constitution and enforce them accordingly. My job is to protect and serve, keep safe from harm and injury, perform duties or services for another person. In other words, in my job, I wear many hats. I can remember a time I was called, this was probably about 2 years ago. I was on night shift, and a lady called, elderly lady, she was a senior citizen. This is probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. She dialed 911, she said she needed an officer at her house. So I got to her house, and she needed me to help her change a light bulb.
Oh my.
At 2 o'clock in the morning. You know what? I was more than happy to do it. So that's just to say I wear many hats. I'm not just limited to putting bad guys in jail and running and gunning, as they put it. But if I see a car on the side of the road, I'm obligated to stop and assist or offer assistance. So that's part of protecting and serving. The next slide is how to deal with the police when stopped or confronted by them. When you're stopped and confronted by the police, you have rights. A lot of people, if I pull a car over and they're agitated or angry over the fact that I stopped them, they always try to tell me I know my rights. You can't do this, you can't do that. And they begin to quote what they believe are their rights, and probably about 85% of the time they have no idea what they're talking about. No clue. So one of the first rights is you have a right to remain silent. If you're charged by a police, only if you're charged with a crime. You don't have to answer any questions in accordance with what you're possibly being charged with. But you do have to present certain identifications and documents, and we'll cover that later on. You have a legal right not to answer questions that may incriminate you or whatever. You can say, well, I want a lawyer, okay? Which is the next slide. You have a right to an attorney if you're being charged with a crime. A lot of people like to say, well, I plead the fifth. If I ask you your name, you have to tell me your name. You can't plead the fifth on a traffic stop and say, I'm not telling you. So there are certain things that you have to do. We're going to cover that as well. For jailable offenses only, you have a right to an attorney. A lot of people say, well, they'll come to court. One of the duties that I have as a deputy sheriff here in Mahoney County is court security. And a lot of times when people come to the bench and they're hearing a speeding ticket or maybe a stop sign or something, and they want to contest the ticket, they'll request a public defender. Well, you can only get a public defender if you're in court for a jailable offense. You can't get a public defender for a speeding ticket. You either have to hire a lawyer or represent yourself. Okay? Not for minor misdemeanors or fines or anything that only results in fines or anything. You have a right to refuse search of your vehicle. A lot of times when I approach a car and I'm suspicious of something that's a crime, whether they have something, they may have marijuana or drugs or a gun or something, I'll ask the person, can I search your car? And they have every right to refuse. But I promise you, if you refuse, I'm calling the dogs. The canines. I'm bringing a canine unit, and we're gonna have them sniff your car out. But it's your right to refuse. An officer needs probable cause or a warrant to search your car, okay? And probable cause is evidence that gives an officer reason to think a crime has been committed or is being committed, as it says on the slide. In other words, if I stop Mark, if I pull Mark over for speeding or whatever, and I ask Mark if I could search his car, and he tells me no, but I smell what I believe to be a skunk, if any of you can relate. Marijuana. If I even smell the odor of marijuana, you probably can guess what I'm going to do next. I'm going to say, Mr. Williams, can you please step out of the vehicle? I'm going to handcuff Mark. I'm going to put him in the back of my cruiser, and I'm going to search his car. It's because I have probable cause to believe that a crime has been or is being committed. So I can search the car. It gives me probable cause to search the car. He can contest that in court if he wants to and have it thrown out, but that's his right. There are certain things, I think I may have skipped. The next reason the police can stop you is for reasonable suspicion. I think it may not be in that order. Reasonable suspicion is less than probable cause, which is the legal standard to arrest, and more than inchoate, not enough to arrest, but stop and identify. For example, I'm going to pick on Mark again. If I get a call of gunshots fired and a witness says there was a black male about 6 feet tall, maybe 220 pounds. Was I close? Bald head. So, okay, 240. See, I was being generous. I come to the area where the shots were possibly, allegedly shot, and I see Mark running down the street. I didn't see him actually shooting the gun, but he matches the description. That gives me reasonable suspicion to stop Mark and question him. That's reasonable suspicion, and you have to comply. You have to identify yourself. If an officer is conducting an investigation, again, reasonable suspicion, I stop you, you have to tell me who you are. You can ask me why I'm stopping you, but you have to identify yourself. You have to give your officer your ID. And a lot of times if you're innocent, cooperate. A lot of people don't want to cooperate with an officer stopping, which usually escalates to something more than just, and it's called a Terry stop. A Terry stop. Like, they have what's called Terry pat down. You can pat them down and go through such. What to do when stopped. Don't fumble around in your car. Don't argue with the police officer. Be cordial. Be friendly. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Madam Toastmaster.
Yeah, well, I actually have a
Okay.
Now, sheriff's departments don't ticket, right? Or they do?
Yes, absolutely. We have full law enforcement peace officer powers.
So what's the difference between sheriff versus?
County, city.
That's another discussion. That's
Yes,
another
different. There's
discussion,
broader
I guess.
responsibility.
What made you want to do this speech?
With all that's going on with the public and law enforcement, all the controversy, and I just want to bring some. My goal is to bring awareness to my community here in Mahoney County, and to enlighten people on how to deal with the police. A lot of people don't know how to deal with the police. They're just unaware of what to do. So it generally leads to escalation and ultimately arrest or even violence or unfortunately worse.
Now, your speech was really like a great takeaway. Speaking from the perspective of the law enforcement, we always get this picture from television of what's going on. To hear actually someone who is out there on the streets express that. What would you like to say to people out there that sort of saw your speech, but is there anything else that maybe the speech didn't cover that you'd like to say to them?
A lot of things people may not be aware as far as law enforcement is the police are not out always to make arrests. Yes, our job is to make the community safer. Our job are to stop the bad guys, but we cover a lot more than just fighting crime. As I mentioned in the speech, I was called to a lady, an elderly woman who needed assistance putting her light bulb in. So we protect, but we also serve, whether it's helping you change a flat, whether it's screwing a light bulb, whether it's even giving you a ride home sometimes. So we cover a wide variety of things other than just fighting crime.